Hey, what's up guys? How's it going? So we're playing the Universim, and of course to give you guys kind of a brief overview of where we left off, we've essentially got ourselves some water. We have engineers repairing our buildings and getting everything set up. We have a water mill, and we've got ourselves a fishing pier, and we also have a warehouse. Now, at this point where we're at, alright, this is where things do get a little tricky. Alright, so our goal at this point is to basically boost our population. Because of winter, it slows everything down, and frankly, most things die during the winter. And this is where it could almost certainly go absolutely wrong. So, to avoid that, what I recommend doing is you want to make sure that you get yourself access to primitive cooking. Now, the reason why is because ultimately what we want to do is we want to keep these guys healthy, and we also want to keep them fit, and we want to make sure they're hungry. You know, because otherwise, well, leaving them to starve is probably not going to do us much good, right? So, again, like anything, I like to keep my food slash water slash anything of that nature. I always like to keep this stuff kind of in relation, or at least close, to wherever my pops are going to be growing. Now, in my situation, I don't really have the luxury of just going, oh yes, you'll just go over here and everything will work out. Because obviously that's not going to do it for me. And because the warehouse is just over here, I think it only makes more sense to kind of assume that they're going to be eating probably in a location pretty close to it. And because I want to be able to use that water land over here, I'm probably going to make sure that I kind of just tilt this at an angle and make sure it is as close as I can get to the mountain as possible. Because again, you know, we don't want to use too much of our precious space. So of course, now that we have that established, we can then kind of get that going. Now, of course, is it a priority? Not really. At this point now, we just want to kind of predominantly focus on improving our population. And of course, it's slow and it doesn't occur very quickly, so we gotta be kind of careful with it. Now, it does take a little bit of time, but we'll eventually get through it. Now that fishing is available, though, we should probably go ahead and get a laborer beginning. So we'll go ahead. Again, just I recommend kind of picking one of your more younger folks for this particular task. So in this case, I think we'll go ahead and pick a guy for it, and we'll just kind of go off of that. And now we'll essentially get food from fish, which will keep our civilization from completely dying out due to that particular stressor. Now, you might notice that we are using up more water than we currently have at our, you know, an output, right? So you want to make sure that you produce more water pumps to counteract that. So in this case, we're just going to go ahead, get another water pump made, and we're going to produce water to counteract that particular issue. Of course, because of the nature of the issue, it was probably not a bad idea to at least anticipate that at some point that would become more of a regular issue. And because of that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to set up a reservoir over here, because I am going to have a mildly decent population here that is going to use a good portion of the water to feed their crops and stuff. And of course, like anything, this is all plenty of good land to use for timber. But down the road, my plan is that what we'll do is we'll take up a good large chunk of this land from here to there and use that for farming. And of course, that does take a little while, but once we get to a fairly decent point, we should be able to produce a fairly decent amount of supply, and it shouldn't be that terribly difficult to do. Having that said, though, of course, like I said, anytime that they're starting to build a hut or anything akin to that, you almost certainly want to make sure that you help them build that as soon as possible. So I'm not going to shy away from this at all. If I see it, I'm helping. Because frankly, it is the key motivator to getting your population to grow as soon as possible. And it's important that you actually have it. Otherwise, they don't like to build, and that's just not good. And like I said, because now that we have an engineer, that'll keep our buildings and everything kind of at least up to par for now. Now, when we get a bigger population, eventually we will need to upgrade our buildings and kind of improve the overall standards of how things are right now. Now, because of where we are, obviously, like I've been telling you guys, I am not giving up my laborers very easily. The reason being is pretty obvious. Like, if you do, it will ultimately cause you problems down the road. Now, because of the nature of how we're getting access to water now, we're going at a net positive of 20. So it may have not been necessary for that, but it's still down the road. Not a bad idea to at least consider having. Now, of course, like I said, you know, getting an eatery is probably one of the more finer things in life to have. You know, you want to kind of make sure that we get that going as soon as possible. Now that we have access to a hospital, we want to make sure that we get this established, and we want to get this made as soon as possible. Mostly for the same reason that you want to get like an eatery, is that if they're not properly fed and they're not properly healed, then down the road we will find that they will often die a little too soon, which we do not want. So we will try to kind of, you know, work with the benefits of what we got. And that's pretty much it for this episode. I hope you guys kind of get at least an idea of how to work your civilization out so far, and I'll see you guys to the next one.